hockey is for everyone. This is a phrase that I know a bunch of you have definitely come across. Comment down below and let me know where you first heard this or saw it. I think it'd be interesting to see where you guys saw the hashtag or this phrase or philosophy. Now, while I agree that hockey should be for everyone, like, let's be real, let's be practical, it's just not. Hockey is for those that can afford it and those that can access it. And sometimes those two things don't go hand in hand. Because I know in terms of the growth of hockey in North America and also in Scandinavian regions, it's peaked. It's not growing anymore. And my opinion is that the people that want to play hockey, that can afford to play hockey, and that have access to everything that they need to play hockey are already doing so. But that means there's also a completely separate group of people that may really want to play the game, but they can't have access to everything that they need to play the game, or may not be able to put in the money that's required or demanded to be able to get involved with the game. Those two things, access and in terms of funding to be able to play hockey, the price of the game, don't always come hand in hand. And you have to have the desire, the access, and the money to be able to play. And not everyone has all three, and that's why the growth of hockey has stagnated so much. Now, brace yourself. Another big thing that we see with hockey is going to be representation, which is something that I've tried to steer clear of discussing on this channel, but it's reached a point where I feel like I do need to say something. Now, the race card is something that I've never pulled. I've never pulled it, and I'm not trying to act like there aren't issues with being a black hockey player, because for sure I've come across my own issues, my own comments. It is the way of the world, but that stuff doesn't bother me. In my opinion, male, female, black, blue, green, purple, I don't care. A hockey player is a hockey player. That's what I see when I'm in a locker room. That's what I see when I'm on the ice. I feel like if more people had that philosophy and that kind of notion, there would be a lot more people getting along than not getting along. But that's just my 2 cents. I do appreciate that there are people that have a very, very hard time being in the game or trying to get into the game because of that representation factor, whether it be not just from a race perspective, but there may be numerous things that make a player different from everyone else that means that they really struggle with being accepted into the hockey community or in a particular locker room. So I'm not saying that that's something that I have dealt with, but it's something that I appreciate people out there do deal with. But now where I take a slight issue with what's going on right now is it almost feels like there was a light switch flicked over the course of the more recent times that we live in, especially on social media, where, let's face it, hockey is a white sport. It is what it is. Look at the countries that hockey is big in. It makes complete sense. I get it. And I've got no issue with that whatsoever. But what it feels like has happened is somebody flicked a switch. And now representation is just everywhere. To a point where there was none, and now it's, in some cases with some brands, all you see. My issue with that, and this is only my issue, I can't speak for anyone else, is that it feels slightly disingenuous because we can't go from not seeing something to constantly seeing it, and everyone's just supposed to act like that's normal and that's just the course of where everything's going. While it's great, I love the fact that it is happening in the degree that it is happening, but I feel like I'm not sure if what's happened is a step in the right direction. It's definitely a step, but perhaps not in the right direction. This entire situation reminded me of an interview that I saw with Denzel Washington about a black director directing a, quote, black movie. And the interviewer was asking him why a black director needed to direct this movie, why couldn't a white one do it, which is a completely fair question. Now, what Denzel said was pretty incredible. He explained that it wasn't a race thing, it was a cultural difference. Race and culture can sometimes be crossed over, but there is a big difference between them. He also explained how a movie like Goodfellas was directed by a director with an Italian heritage, Martin Scorsese. And then also how Schindler's List was directed by a director with Jewish heritage, Steven Spielberg. Now the issue here is Steven Spielberg could have probably directed Goodfellas very well, and Martin Scorsese could have probably directed Schindler's List incredibly well. Anyone can research and regurgitate information. That's not difficult to do. But what is difficult is to be able to capture and explain and allow other people to be able to relate to cultural differences. And the people that are probably best suited to do that are those that have grown up and experienced those cultures firsthand. Some people watching this video may not be able to relate or understand. And it's also important to mention that if you don't understand or can't relate, that's completely fine. Not everybody will share the same view or belief or understanding, and that is completely fine. What do I mean by this? How does it link to hockey? When you see these brands posting, especially one that happened quite recently, I don't want to mention the brand or the post because I don't want people to go back to it and, maybe spread more negativity, but a brand very recently posted a post that was taken the very wrong way. It was a partnership post with two organizations and it was taken the wrong way. If anything, that post created more segregation than unity. And I actually commented on it and explained that. The way that the post was delivered to the audience, there was no background, no context, just an image and a statement, which is going to rub a lot of people the wrong way. And I knew that before I even read the comments. I feel bad because the messaging behind what they were trying to do, I get it, but a lot of people aren't going to get it. And there's the cultural difference. I have grown up as a black hockey player in a predominantly white sport, so I could understand the cultural significance and difference with what they were trying to do, or in other words, the cultural messaging of what they were doing. But the rest of the community just saw it as a division, which I completely agree with as well. They needed to be more context behind what they were doing, more insight, more of an explanation. A video would have been a lot better than a post. And I actually mentioned that, and this is the start of us trying to explain this from a unity perspective, not trying to segregate people, which I think is very important for me to mention. Now, saying that, I feel like the people posting these posts are just following instructions from whoever is giving them. And perhaps the people that are writing these captions and these posts aren't from the cultural perspective of somebody that has lived that, understands it, and perhaps might be better suited to deliver a message that makes sense. And I think a lot of these big brands could do so much more if they collaborated, consulted, or spoke with players from these backgrounds who understand how to deliver the message properly, rather than throwing something up from a we need to do this perspective, rather than a we should and we want to do this. Those are two very different things, and I feel like that could have really made a difference in how the message was received by the hockey community. I feel like all of these points are really relevant and important to be able to actually make hockey for everyone. Now from there, let's jump into my favourite part, categories. Pricing, accessibility, and also hockey culture. Pricing is the one that keeps a lot of people out, that live in North America perhaps, that have access to rinks and stores, but the cost of the game is so great and that's what keeps them away from being able to play. I carried out a test. I had 3 different hockey shopping experiences with 3 different categories. The first one was thrifting. Essentially, I went on Gumtree for North America, that is the Craigslist in the UK. I went on Gumtree, I went on Facebook Marketplace, I went on eBay, and I purchased equipment that I could get as cheap as I could get it to be able to play the game. That's one category. The second one was going into a hockey store and buying brand new equipment, but buying equipment in accordance to my level, my build, how much I'm going to be on the ice. That's the second category. The third one was buying equipment in accordance to what we see brands advertising and marketing constantly, which essentially is no pricing restraints, just go in there and buy all of the top spec stuff that you want. That's the last category. Now, here are all of the different prices of all 3 categories that I purchased equipment in. The interesting thing about these categories is, as a player, you have to figure out which one is practical for you to slot into and which one your ego will allow you to slot into. If the most practical one is to go and get thrift equipment so you can get a foot in the door and start playing hockey, but your ego wouldn't allow you to do that, here's another area where you can be prevented from entering the game and playing the game that you want to play. And depending on your age where you play and the people around you, I understand why thrifting equipment might not be ideal. I saw a post in one of my most recent videos about how some kids can be mean. If somebody steps onto the ice with secondhand equipment from 5 years ago, maybe there'll be players on the team that might make fun of them, that might make them feel small. And when you think about that, in reality, if that was you, would you be the type of player that would be able to just ignore that and keep playing? Which is probably some of us. But are you more likely to not want to come back because you had such a negative experience? Which is another thing that really isn't considered. Now, with the second and third category, in terms of buying appropriate levels, that's probably where a lot of us should sit. But the majority of us, especially in beer league and rec leagues, we tend to go for the most flashy stuff because that's what we see being advertised. And while that's great, it creates its own problems because a lot of us are spending more than we need to just because of what has been pushed to us via social media. Now from there, we also have the access perspective. That's being able to access rinks, people that can train you, servicing because you need to get your skates sharpened, you need to buy stick tape, leg tape, jerseys, socks, all of that type of stuff. If you don't have access to that, but you have equipment, it's only a short-term solution because once the equipment is broken, battered, needs to be serviced or repaired or replaced, you essentially are back in the same position of not being able to access the sport, which is an important one. Giving equipment is fantastic and it makes such a huge difference, and there are companies and organizations out there that do a phenomenal job of doing this. But you do have to think about how long-term that's going to work and if it's viable and sustainable to be able to continue donating or giving equipment, or if there needs to be a solution that's much more practical. And this is where the question comes in of what should be done to be able to make this idea more practical to be able to allow more people to get involved with the game and continue being able to play it. Now, the last and final point is going to be hockey culture. I myself used to play a scrimmage on a Friday evening, which is no longer the case. That scrimmage is gone and I need to find a new team and a new day to play. Now, I actually feel a little bit apprehensive and effectively, for lack of a better word, slightly nervous to approach a different team to be able to play and train in a scrimmage. This is somebody that's been involved in hockey for over 10 years. Now, what would that feel like for somebody that is getting involved in the game for the first time? It's, again, another thing that people don't think about. I mentioned it at the start of the video, how some teams can be really welcoming, some players are great, and some teams and some other players might not be so great. That means that alone can be something that really deters people from playing the game. I can't think of how many countless stories I've heard of where players have stopped playing because of interactions that they've had with their own teammates. It's made them feel alienated and unwelcome, and that's an aggregate of things that is going to make someone not want to participate in the sport. Now, this is a lot to put out in a video. I completely understand that. What I want to do here is try and figure out what is the most viable solution to try and make hockey for everyone in a real aspect. What can we do from our perspective as creators? Please comment down below, let us know. And I am going to mention that there are organizations out there that we do want to collaborate with. One that I have to say is on the top of the list is going to be Hockey in Harlem. I am very keen to work with them to bring more attention to what they do from a YouTube perspective, because this isn't to say there aren't other organizations out there that are phenomenal, but Hockey in Harlem holds a special place in my heart. And I have been in communication with them for a number of years, trying to figure out a way to make schedules make sense so we can get out there and capture something. I do want to do more of these documentary style videos. As I've seen in comments, you guys also really love the documentary style videos. I want to do more of that this year, and I want you guys to help us to figure out who we should go collaborate with, what organizations we should meet with and where, to bring you the content that you want to see, and more importantly, to hopefully shed light on these types of situations and truly try and make an impact in growing the game alongside some of the fantastic organizations that are out there already doing a phenomenal job of that. But I'm really excited to jump in the comments and chat to you guys about what can be done to remedy the situation while we're here. I think one of the phrases that I've always loved is being able to leave the planet a little bit better than the way that you found it. And hopefully by creating videos like these and hopefully joining and promoting campaigns that are already out there, we'll be able to do our small part to be able to make that a reality. But thank you for watching this, guys. If you like this, thumbs up and subscribe. All your comments and questions and suggestions down below in the comment section. And I'll catch you in the next one. Take care, guys.